All right. Thanks everyone for coming out to 1 Million Cups. My name is Lance and this is Milton, and we're going to be running the show today. First off, we always like to see how many people in the crowd are new to 1 Million Cups today. Please raise your hand. All right. Welcome, welcome. All right. To follow that up, who are our savvy veterans out there? There we go. Welcome back. Thanks for coming back. One quick announcement before we get started. We want to welcome our Fast Track facilitators who are in the crowd today. If you could stand up and everyone give them a round of applause. All right. Awesome. Welcome. All right. Our first presenter is a Kansas City-based company that helps homeowners quickly and easily find and hire qualified contractors. So please help me welcome Andrew to the stage with JoeBid.
So last year, my wife and I bought a house that had been bank-owned for roughly a year and a half. And we got a good deal, but it needed quite a bit of work. Specifically, it needed interior paint, exterior paint, landscaping, electrical work, furnace repair, cabinets refinished, hardwood floors refinished, hardwood floors installed, carpets replaced, plumbing, and tile work, to name a few. Like any good homeowner would do, we wanted to get at least 3 bids for each of these projects to make sure that we weren't getting screwed. But where do you start? Well, we set out to find our contractors where I would assume any homeowner generally starts, Google. But how do you know what kind of reputation these guys have? How do you know what areas of Kansas City they serve? How do you know if they're insured? Are there any other tools that could potentially help solve this issue? Does anyone in the audience know who this is? Okay, several of you do, and the stats say that most of you probably do. For those that don't, this is Angie, and she has a website called Angie's List that attempts to solve the exact problem that Google creates when trying to find a home contractor. The issue is that she does so by charging homeowners high monthly fees and contractors exorbitant monthly dues to stay at the top of that list. Costs that are then passed on to homeowners and contractors. The reason that most of you know who this is that because Angie's List spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year on old school marketing tactics like television commercials. So I found myself back here. After spending hours calling contractors, explaining the same scope of work 3 times for each one of those projects, we decided there had to be a way to make this process easier on homeowners. Then we decided to take a look at the existing options for contractors as well. What we found was that we as homeowners are not the only ones struggling with this situation. Contractors are suffering too. So we created JoeBid, the most fair and simple solution to the aforementioned problem we could create. JoeBid matches the best contractor with a homeowner. We don't charge anything until the job is successfully completed. We essentially take the risk and uncertainty out of signing up with Angie's List for a contractor, and at the same time, streamline the process for homeowners to become their own virtual general contractor. With JoeBid, the homeowner pays nothing, and the contractor only pays if they actually get the job. I'll say that again. With JoeBid, the homeowner pays nothing, and the contractor only pays if they actually get the job. This takes all the risk and uncertainty out of finding a contractor for your home. Let me quickly show you how to use JoeBid. A homeowner comes onto the site, picks a category, reviews contractor profiles, including business description, service area, services offered, and any ratings and comments left by previous customers. They then choose up to 3 of those contractors to send their job request to. They fill out a short form, and they are done. With JoeBid, a homeowner can send their project to 3 contractors in under 5 minutes. Well, it's been a long journey since we launched roughly 9 months ago, but we know that we're only at the beginning. We look at a lot of metrics to track our progress, but one of the most important is the number of job requests submitted by homeowners, and because that ties directly to our revenue. This is a growth curve for that metric. In the last 5 months, we've seen monthly job requests submitted by homeowners increase by over 4 times. And where there is work, there are contractors. What started as me largely cold calling hundreds of contractors in Kansas City has slowly turned into largely organic submissions by contractors. That being said, we're always looking for more. So if you know a reputable contractor, please send them our way. However, don't just send us anyone. The second they don't return a customer's phone call or they start getting bad reviews, we'll kick them off the site, which has happened a couple of times. We have a very high standard for professional tact, and we want only the very best for our homeowners. As an added benefit for our homeowners, we have partnered with Habitat for Humanity Kansas City. If you find your contractor on JoBid, we will donate 10% of our proceeds to a family in need. Thank you for listening to my spiel today. What I need from you is simple. If you or someone you know is looking to get something done around the house this summer, find your contractor on JoBid. If you know of a great contractor, send them our way. Thank you.
Andrew, thank you. What we like to do at this time is let the audience participate in asking some questions and answers. Lance and I will be moving through the crowd here. If you've got a question, just raise your hand and we'll come over and let you ask it.
Great idea. One of the things that I find the most frustrating on sites like this is reviews. And being a business owner, one of the things I find the most frustrating is reviews, because the only ones that you seem to get are the people that are irritated. Have you thought about putting, and does your site incorporate people, what they did right and what they did wrong if a contractor does something wrong? Because I could see it just being a pile on the contractor space.
Yeah, it doesn't call those for overall price, professionalism, et cetera. And then one of the things that we heard from a lot of contractors was, I get these bad reviews from people that I never did work for. So we started with a simple WordPress site on purpose because we didn't want to design this expensive website until we knew exactly what we wanted. But the way we kind of addressed that was we used a Facebook plugin. So nobody can leave a review without you seeing the Facebook profile that left that review. So there is a little bit of accountability there. But it's certainly something to keep in mind when we design the future site.
We've got a question here in the back.
So since your revenue is driven off of the lead actually connecting and getting the job, how do you get the contractor to come back to you and tell you, I got the job?
Now that's usually the first question I get, but thank you for asking it second. So obviously we've assumed some of the risk in this scenario. There's a risk that the homeowner and the contractor will cut us out. So first we're counting on the contractor to be honest with us. We try to seek out contractors with some integrity. Second, we'll follow up with the homeowner and say, hey, did you get all the bids? Did you end up getting that work done? And third, we have maybe 15 contractors for our decking category, and we're constantly adding more. But we may only display the top 8. And the way that you get into that 8 is by giving us a return on the number of leads that we give you. So hopefully our contractors have enough foresight to realize that 90% of a lot of jobs is more than 100% of one job. And it's not foolproof, but it's an experiment for us.
And can you tell us a little bit more about how you field these contractors? You mentioned that you take referrals, as well as I'm sure they can sign up on the site as well.
Right. So whenever they sign up, or I reach out to them and ask them to sign up, I'm looking at the existing review sites because Angie's List does have some good reviews. It's really expensive to use it. So I'll check there. I'll check Better Business Bureau. I'll do Google searches. So I'll research all of them, and then I personally speak to every single contractor that's on our site. So I do a pretty thorough background check, at least of their reputation.
And have you ever met Angie?
No, I have not.
You said the contractors pay you once the job is done. Approximately how much does your service cost the contractor?
Good question. We charge contractors 10% of total invoice, but up to a max of $300. So if it's a $40,000 roof, we're not charging them 10% of that. It's capped at $300. And we arrived at that number by looking at the discounts that most of them offer, and we thought that that was a fair amount. And most of the contractors that I've spoken to, when I ask the question, how much do you pay for a conversion, it's usually more than 10%. So the feedback from the contractors is that it's a pretty good deal.
Got a question here in the middle.
Do you allow for adjustment based on geographic region? For example, north of the river versus south. Some contractors, won't go north. Just based on what they do, it doesn't make sense.
Right. As far as adjustment, as far as price. Hmm. Okay. Like I mentioned earlier that we have a simple WordPress site for now, so we can't do that matching. That is at the top of the list of our opportunity log that we want to address when we get a more robust website is when you enter in your zip code, you only see contractors that work in that zip code. But currently, the only solution I have to that problem is trying to reach out to contractors that cover the entire metro.
Another question.
So people leave negative reviews because they're motivated to do so, and you can't go to a Burger King, McDonald's, or anywhere else without, on the back of your receipt, leave a review and get a free burger or get a free French fry. So have you thought about incentivizing positive reviews to encourage people to do them?
Also at the top of the list of that opportunity log, we've thought about doing Starbucks gift cards, $5 here, $5 there. But then we've also gotten some advice that that doesn't necessarily work, that if a homeowner wants to leave a review, they're going to do it on their own. And the incentive is not going to facilitate that. So it's probably going to be another experiment that we run to see if our customer reviews increase as a result of doing something like that.
Got a question here in the back?
Andrew, I apologize. I may have missed it. Are you just launching here in Kansas City?
Just here in Kansas City. With the simple WordPress site, designing a website that could handle multiple geographic areas becomes a little more complicated. So that's one of the things that will facilitate building that more robust site when we want to move to probably a warm weather climate to average out some of that revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Got another question here in the middle.
When your contractors are listed, are they like bonded, licensed, insured? Do you check that out, or how's that handled?
We set out with the goal of kind of being agnostic. So we let the homeowner make that determination whether they only want to hire a contractor that is those things, and it's up to the contractor to list those things. Angie's List does have fields for those things, but I think their question is, are you appropriately licensed for your trade? But they're not required to put an image of their license or anything in there.
Okay, second question, if that's okay. Is there any negotiation process in that, or a contractor submits like best and final pricing? How does that work?
When we first came up with the idea, we had the intention of doing this reverse auction style. So a homeowner would put their requirements up there, and then contractors would bid through the site. They would see if they're the lowest bidder, and if not, they could update. What we found when we started talking to contractors is it would be very, very difficult to get them to engage at that level unless it was a huge job.
Question here up front.
Yeah, you said your competitors do more old school and traditional marketing. So what's your kind of marketing strategy of getting your name out and getting customers to know who you are, what you do, and where to go if they want your services?
So we do a lot of the free stuff since we are a startup. So we do a lot of Facebook posts, Twitter, social media. We do experiment with, say, Google AdWords, Facebook ads. Some of that stuff works, but the return isn't very great because if a roofer's if somebody's looking for a roofer's willing to pay, say, $18 a click. So our conversion rate would have to be a lot higher on those for it to make sense. And so what truthfully has worked the best for us is largely organic traffic. I mean, the people use our site, or they'll see us on Facebook, and they'll come to the site, and it's pretty low risk to begin with, so it tends to work.
Another question here in the middle.
So I understand how you're differentiated from Angie's List. But what about Service Magic?
Which is now Home Advisor. Home Advisor, I don't know if they bought Service Magic or they just changed their name because their reputation was needing a name change. So when you go on Home Advisor's website, and I tried this when we were looking to get all this work done, the thing that I really did not like about it is you fill out what you need done, and then you hit go, and it gets sent to a bunch of contractors, and you have no idea who they are. So it might get sent to somebody who you've had a bad experience with in the past, and you may not want it go to them. When talking to contractors, I would say 98 out of 100 hate it because it's pay per lead. They have to be on the ball like that. And I've talked to contractors that have gotten leads in Oklahoma, and HomeAdvisor won't refund their money because they say, well, you're getting your name out there, you're getting the benefit. So contractors really do not like HomeAdvisor.
Another question here in the front.
What kind of support do you have for your contractors to sign up on the site and build their profile?
So they submit a form with their information. I've had a couple of guys that need help with logos, or they don't know how to use computers very well, so they'll give me their business card, I'll scan it, and I'll put it up there. But fundamentally, it's just a simple form that they submit.
Question here in the back.
I might have missed this part, but I just was curious. You're concentrating on homeowners. Have you thought about, are you going to offer the same services free to, say, property managers or people that own multiple listings?
Absolutely. And it's not anything that would need to be changed in our process, but it's just a matter of who we focus our marketing on. But yeah, we're open to property managers or even commercial businesses.
Question up front.
Yeah, is your business here, is it primarily driven just by the website?
Yes.
And so the investment you've made is primarily in the website and your own personal time, correct?
The large investment was $80 for the website, or whatever we've got into that, and then the time that I spend calling contractors. And right now the dynamic in Kansas City is that they're working 6 days a week, and I've talked to deck builders that are booked out until October. And so now is not a time that I'm spending a lot of time calling contractors. I'll wait until September, October, and pick that back up.
So to follow up with that, is this a full-time job for you? How much time do you put in?
It started out full-time until I got a comfort level with the number of contractors that we had. And then at that point, I thought that we had enough contractors where we could run an experiment in Kansas City to see if this could be profitable. Because, like I said, it's an experiment taking on that risk. So I wanted to see if we were going to be profitable before I spent a whole heck of a lot of time calling more contractors. So I took on a 6 to 9 month contract here in Kansas City in the interim.
What are your plans for scaling?
So like I said, it's hard to scale with this simple WordPress site. So when we prove out that we're profitable in Kansas City and we can be a profitable business model, we will build a more robust website so that when a user comes, it'll pick up their area and send them to their local site. And I think I mentioned earlier that we're looking to go to a warm weather climate to kind of even out some of that revenue.
And what kind of success are your contractors having now as far as like repeat business and so forth?
Oh, they love it. They really do. They like that they only have to pay for leads that convert. They get a pretty good conversion rate on the stuff that we send them. And when they get a customer, we tell them that, you got the first job because of us. If you get a second job with that customer, that's because you did a good job the first time. So they get to keep that and don't owe us our fee for that.
Another question here.
Are you familiar with Thumbtack?
Yes, I am.
And for those of us who may be naive, what's the difference?
So Thumbtack is pretty similar. They have taken the approach where, and it probably helps with their online presence, but they build contractor profiles. And so you go to their site and you search for a plumber, and you'll see a list of plumbers, and you click on one and it'll say, is this your business? Click here to claim your profile. So it's not really a vetted directory. It's, they bought some data or something and thrown up pages for a lot of different contractors, whether they've agreed to be on that site or not. So that's a big difference as far as a user.
And I really liked what you said earlier about don't recommend contractors to you if they don't return calls and stuff, because I've had a variety of work done recently, and the biggest problem I have is you contact a contractor, they say, we'll be out tomorrow, and then you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
Or they do show up tomorrow and they say, we'll have you a bid within a week, and then you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
And I used Thumbtack and the contractor came out, did the bid, said I'd have it tomorrow. A week later, I contacted him. He said, I'll be out tomorrow to look at it. It's like, we already looked at it. Oh yeah, I forgot. Well, I'll be out with my carpenter. I haven't heard from him in a month. So obviously I've moved on. And so I think that's a big plus that you would want to share on the website, that these are contractors who return calls, who show up, who do the work, or we kick them off the site.
Absolutely. And contractors inherently aren't terribly organized people. They're kind of living out of their truck. And they are very busy right now, but that's also the reason that we proactively follow up with them. When a homeowner submits a lead, they give us 2 dates. When do they want the bids in by, and when do they want the work completed? And so that information is there for the contractor to see, and we let them turn down jobs. If they say, you know, I can't meet that homeowner's timeline because I'm booked out 2 weeks, we'll call the homeowner and say, hey, they had to decline based on your timeline. Would you like to invite somebody else to bid? So we kind of manage that whole process.
Question here in the middle.
You just mentioned that second jobs generate no revenue for you.
Uh-huh.
So how would it work, or do you feel like you would have a diminishing return on your websites? And then secondly, if a contractor, if I got a contractor through your website and then I referred that contractor to my neighbor, that would generate no revenue for you neither. I mean, at some point in time, I would think that there would be a diminishing return.
So on the diminishing return, if you got your house painted, you may not get your house painted for another 8 years. So you might use that painter again to paint your house. But if we found you a good contractor, you might come back to us for plumbing or electrical work or landscaping. So we think that it's probably a big enough market with enough categories that there's still some growth opportunity there. And if you refer the contractor to your neighbor, we don't get any revenue, but it makes the contractor happier. They're going to recommend us to their local tradesmen, and that's the fair thing to do, is that they did such good work that they get the referral.
And how many contractors do you have signed up right now, and how many do you bring on, do you think, on average each month?
When I kind of stopped calling, we had I think about 37. I think we're up to about 42 now, having kicked off 2 or 3 in the meantime. So that's what I said. It's kind of that balance where I think it's enough to basically run my experiment over the summer in Kansas City, see if it's going to be profitable, and then we'll hit up getting more in the fall.
So you're pretty much doing like the A and B testing now. How long will you run that testing cycle?
I think we'll really know if this is going to be a profitable model once the summer's over. That way, because on some of these jobs, there's a pretty significant lead time between when the job request gets submitted and when we get the revenue. Because the contractor's got to do the work, they got to get paid, and then they got to pay us. So it'll take probably till September, October, and then I've got a pretty good confidence that it's going to be a profitable model.
How many contractors would you like to see on board by then?
I'd like to see enough in each category where that control that I mentioned earlier will work, where if we want to display 10 deck builders, we've got 5 that aren't being displayed, so that there's a motivation to report when they do the work. Other than that, it's whatever the homeowner needs. Obviously, we want enough contractors to be able to fulfill demand when it peaks.
So you showed us that slide with the graph of how your leads are increasing. How many leads have you had so far?
You know, I don't know that off the top of my head. We launched in September, and then obviously over the winter, it's pretty slow in the home improvement industry. When spring started, we were getting a handful a month. Now we're getting a handful a week. So I'd say we probably get, 4 or 5 a week now.
Great. Another question here.
Any thought that you might expand this to include people who are looking for architects for small projects or engineers for small projects?
So I keep a list of categories that we want to add, and some of them are kind of an experiment. For instance, we added house cleaning and found that it was very difficult to recruit house cleaners, so that one will probably be coming down. I'll look at the number of businesses in a category in a city. For instance, there are a ton of deck builders, so that tells me that there's a pretty high demand for deck building. My dad asked me, why don't you add gutters? And looked at Angie's List and there's 30 companies. So while we'll add it in the future, it may not be the next one that we add. I haven't looked at architects and engineers specifically, but I'd have to look and see where it falls as far as that priority of the next ones to add. I'd kind of hesitant to add additional categories until I've got some depth in my existing ones.
And would you mind sharing just a little bit more about your marketing efforts? I know you mentioned the social media. You tried several things like, the Facebooks and the PPC and all that. Have you thought about other things, even like Pinterest? Do any of those systems have any value to you?
So I don't know what a Pinterest is. I've heard of it. My wife can probably help. We tried Instagram, but we've only posted a couple of things on there. But it's definitely a good suggestion because they're both very visual. But we just haven't gotten there yet, to tell you the truth.
Got a question here?
I'm a real estate agent, and in our office, we're constantly passing emails back and forth to each other, getting recommendations for all kinds of different contractors. So I was just going to recommend to you, you might try to approach different real estate offices and talk about your business there.
Yeah, and I've talked to a handful, but it's definitely an area where we need to expand our efforts. I agree.
I think we've got time here for one more question. So Andrew, before we let you go, is there anything that you can kind of share with the audience that as a community we can do to help you?
Yes. One, if you're getting a job done around your house, consider getting your bids on Joe Bid. It's free. You'll be helping a family in need. We've taken some of the risk out of that process. And two, if you know a good contractor, send them our way, especially if they want to get leads that they only pay for if they convert.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
All right, we've actually got a lot happening here. If you would take a look at the sheet that's on your chairs, there are announcements over on the back side of those. There's a couple that I wanted to point out just very quickly. There's an announcement there about the Wednesday remote workdays at the Sprint Accelerator. If you're not familiar with Sprint Accelerator, it's a co-work space located down in the Arts District. It's located at 210 West 19th Terrace. And on Wednesdays, they are opening it up, and they would like to invite anyone and everyone. It's a public space to come and share in that place and come and work with them. It's open from 8 to 5. The second thing is, also at the Sprint Accelerator, they are doing a very unique event on August 1st during First Friday. It is the first International Air Guitar Museum on August 1st. So just make note of that. Again, they just want to have people come down and experience the space. Also, if you're standing in the back, there are some open seats here in the front if you want to come on down and also grab a seat. We are now getting ready for our second presentation from KC Pet Project. And KC Pet Project's mission is to end the killing of healthy and treatable pets in Kansas City, Missouri by using the most progressive and life-saving programs. We want to welcome Tori and also Teresa.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. My name is Tori Fugate. I'm the Manager of Marketing and Development for the KC Pet Project. My boss, Teresa Johnson, is also with me today. She is our CEO, Executive Director, and Chief Life Saving Officer, and she'll be up here in a bit to help answer some questions. So just a quick poll to get started. How many of you own a pet? How many of you have a pet at home? That's awesome. How many of you have adopted a pet? Have any of you adopted a pet from KC Pet Project? Yay, there's a couple. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for adopting. Just to give you a little bit of backstory on KC Pet Project, we did not exist before 2012. We are a relatively new organization here in Kansas City. There are a lot of other animal welfare organizations. We're fairly new. We took over all operations for the city of Kansas City, Missouri's animal shelter in 2012, January 1. The city decided to get out of the animal sheltering business. They have ran it since the 70s. We operate the shelter out by Arrowhead Stadium, and in 2011 they opened it up and said, who wants to run it. We would like a nonprofit too. And nobody bid on it. So a group of animal welfare activists in Kansas City, Missouri got together and said, you know, let's do this, let's submit it. So they submitted a proposal very, very quickly. October 2011, we were incorporated, and then in 2012, we opened up our doors. We have 2 other locations now, adoption centers, one in Zona Rosa Shopping Center and the other in the Petco store at 95th and Quivira in Overland Park, Kansas. Those are strictly adoption centers, and then we take in animals at the main shelter. How we're different, we have a variety of ways that we are different from other animal welfare organizations. We do not have any blanket adoption rules, so if you have a fence, that's no problem. Or if you don't have a fence, no problem. We have specialized staff, a full-time veterinarian, no public services. Also, we do a lot of community outreach and offer resources. We do vaccination, microchip clinics, and work with other animal welfare organizations to get more pets spayed and neutered, that type of thing. We are responsible for providing all of the medical care and treatment for our injured pets when they come to us. We're an open admission shelter, meaning we take in anything that's brought to us by Kansas City, Missouri residents or animal control, owners-surrendered pets as well as strays. And a lot of the time when they come in, and they are very injured when they come in, hit by car, gunshots, a lot of significant injuries. We do provide medical care and treatment, which we pay for ourselves through donations from the public. We also have an in-house parvo ward, and we treat parvo puppies as they come in. We've taken in over 60 this year so far that are parvo positive and panleukopenia positive kittens, and we have a 90% success rate of saving those puppies when they come in to our shelter. We took in over 80 last year, so we're on track to take in a lot more this year. These are just a few of the animals that we've helped with medical cases. Ace, you may remember, was a little dog that was hit in the head, thrown in a dumpster last year. He actually got to go on the Rachel Ray show, which was very fun for him and me. And then we had Kia, it was Kia that went on the Rachel Ray show, sorry. She was found in a locked car in a tow lot and was in there for 30 days. And she lived, and she's doing very, very well now. And then we have Silas, who came in with mange, and you can see the transformation that he's had. Services that we offer: adoptions is our main one. Lost pet services, impounded pet services, licensing, microchipping. You can walk into any of our locations and get your pet microchip for only $25. It's a great deal. Behavior training and assistance as well. And we're starting a lot of new training programs, and we're very excited about it. We have a volunteer program at all 3 of our locations. We have orientations that you can come to and start volunteering with our organization, walking dogs, socializing cats, helping with adoption events, helping with our fundraisers, play groups, which I'll get to in a moment. We have a lot of options for you, and we're open to what your talents are. As an individual, we would love to have you as a volunteer. We have a foster program. So we have a lot of kittens that come in that are too young to be adopted, puppies as well, maybe some dogs that have some socialization issues would do better out of a shelter. We have a wonderful foster program, and it's kind of open to whatever you have time for. We have our playgroup programs. Every day we get dogs out into playgroups. We run them, every single available dog in the shelter. And here's a little short video so you can kind of see, hopefully it works. You can kind of see what playgroups look like. So every single dog gets rotated out into playgroups every day, and we have properly supervised playgroups with a trainer who works with every dog, and that's how we really get to know the dogs in our shelter. We'll have them out 12 at a time, or maybe just one-on-one, and that's how we make better matches, as we figure out what their play style is like and how they'll fit better into a home eventually, if they get along well with other dogs, get along well with some dogs. So it's really, really helped us, and it's saving lives every single day at the shelter, and it's awesome to sit there and watch them play every day. So we do a lot of events. We have major fundraisers, of course, adoption events. Today we started our Meow Madness adoption event. We've done a lot in 2 years. We have a lot of shortcomings. So we work out of a building that was built in 1972. It's got about 14,000 square feet. So taking in almost 10,000 animals this year, that gets a cramped space. So hopefully, eventually, we'll be able to have a new, beautiful shelter, a modern facility in Kansas City that's actually about 3 times the size of the current one that we are in now, because we do take in a lot, and that's why we depend heavily on our foster program and adoptions to move pets out as quickly as we possibly can. Progress is promised. We promised the city when we took over the contract that we would save animals in Kansas City, and we've done that. So in 2.5 years, we've gone from a shelter that killed up to 70% of the animals that came to it to over 90% save rate. So every month, we're over 90%, no matter how many we take in. We cared for almost 9,000 pets in 2013. This year, we're slated to take in almost 10, so we have a lot of work to do. You can see the success of our adoption centers, where we've adopted out nearly 2,900 pets since opening Zona in 2012 and Petco in March of this year. This is just a lovely graphic to look at what it was like before KC Pet Project took over. So adoptions weren't a very high priority. You can see in 2012 and 2013 how that number went up. We're very, very proud of that accomplishment, as well as this one, where you can see the decreased euthanasia rate has gone down significantly since taking over the shelter in 2012. And already this year, we've taken in 5,300 pets. July is slated to be our highest month of intake ever, with 1,100 coming in. We already have a 93% live release rate for the year, which is incredible for an open admission shelter, and this, especially a municipal shelter. And we were fortunate enough to be recognized this year at the Petco Foundation Gala, where we were awarded the inaugural Paul Jolly Compassion Award. This is just some of the happy faces that we get to see every day leaving our facility. And if you want to follow us, we have a very active and engaging Facebook page with over 36,000 Facebook likes in 2.5 years. We're very proud of that, as well as we're on Twitter, Instagram, and we even have a very kind of quirky, fun Tumblr page where you can follow some of the success of our treatment of parvo puppies. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you very, very much.
Tori, thank you. I believe, Teresa, will you be joining us to actually answer questions? If you have any questions, please raise your hand and we'll come over. We've got a question here in the middle.
Hi, Tori. Hi. So I worked with the shelter before you guys took over, and what a difference you guys have made. I pulled a dog out of there to foster that when I put him in the car, he was so stinky, the smell lasted for like 2 days, and I had to give him like 3 baths. So you guys have just made a huge difference. But I wanted you to expand a little bit on your foster program and how when someone agrees to foster a dog, it leaves a space for you guys to bring in another one, because I know you guys are really overcrowded right now. And also wondering if you're still doing the short-term fostering for the transports that the care transports that go to Colorado.
Tracy, you want to?
Yes, all of those things. So fostering is critical for us because, like you said, when animals come in, if they go to foster, that's going to open up a kennel to make space for another animal that's coming in that same day. So it's everything from animals that are too young to be placed up for adoption, animals that are maybe recovering from some sort of a medical condition that just need a short-term foster as well. It could be dogs that just, as Tori said, are very stressed in the shelter and just need to get out into someone's home. They've never been in a kennel before. They don't really know what's happening to them. It's a very stressful environment at the shelter. And so fostering provides an opportunity for an animal to leave the shelter to go to your home. Many times, if those animals are already available for adoption, we will still have them available on our website, and we will help you with marketing to find a home for that animal. Or it might be that we just need an animal to leave the shelter for 2, 3, 5 days until it goes on a transport to another shelter across the country, and we're just looking for someone that might take care of, say, a dog for us for just a short amount of time. So there's a lot of variety, a lot of opportunity. If you have any time or any space in your home, it's a great way to help save lives in the shelter is to foster.
Got a question here in the middle.
How much do you use volunteers, and what's your critical resource as far as the pets you can handle? Is it resources, volunteers, funding, space? What's your critical resource limitation?
We utilize volunteers significantly. So we need volunteers every day at all 3 of our locations. We have probably sent through orientation over 1,000 volunteers, but I'd say our core volunteers that put in a lot of time, we've got several hundred. The majority of those volunteers, I would say, do dog walking or some sort of interaction with dogs on a daily basis. But we utilize a lot of volunteers for everything from events to customer service, administrative things. Our special events are always in need of volunteers to help us.
Got a question up front?
I don't know if you mentioned this yet, but how are you financed? Tell me about the fiscal end of your business.
So because we run the shelter for the city of Kansas City, part of, or I would say the majority of our funds do come from our contract that we have with the city of Kansas City. I would say, though, that the funds that we're given to provide the sheltering services for the city are only half of what it takes for us to run our organization. So our budget is about $2.5 million a year, and half of that is provided by the city for those sheltering services. The other half we raise on our own through donations, grants, fees for services.
We've got a question far to your left.
I adopted a dog about 2 months ago, and he came with kennel cough. So I was just wondering what you guys do to prevent that sort of thing, and what causes that.
So the challenge that we have in a shelter our size and a shelter that's that old in the city of Kansas City is that all the dogs are in one giant room. So we have 200 plus dogs that are all in a room together. The city did not build a shelter with any isolation space for new dogs coming in to separate them from dogs that are available for adoption. So many times those dogs come in, even though we vaccinate every animal on intake, many of those dogs come in with no vaccination history at all. And so they're not able to combat any germs that might come in from other dogs. And so many times they do end up with a very common upper respiratory infection that we call kennel cough. It's like children in a daycare. It's very easy to spread, from dog to dog. We do provide all the medications that an adopter would need. We medicate the dogs if they're there, if they do show any symptoms. And we provide medical services up to 14 days after you adopt. Having a new shelter and having appropriate isolation areas will help prevent a lot of that.
A question here also in the front. There was a slide that you had up about the different events, and it looked like it was pretty lengthy. And I was curious if you might be able to share a little bit more about all of those events that you guys put on in order to get the word out to the community about what you do.
Sure. We do a variety of events. So, of course, we have, our major fundraising events. Hoops for Hounds is our big one right now, which is during March Madness. And we have it at Boulevard Brewing Company, and that's just a fun event where we watch the games that are going on down at the Sprint Center and have food and silent auction, things like that. We are out in the community pretty much every single weekend doing events. So we're up at Zona a lot because they have a lot of built-in events. So we're doing like the Microbrew Festival, Kids Fest is next weekend. We're doing a lot more events in Overland Park now since we have a location there. And then, of course, in Kansas City, Missouri, we were in Brookside last week at the Price Chopper doing adoption events. And then we're trying to be out in the community just to spread the word about the awesome stuff that's going on. A lot of people we don't think are aware of the great work that's happening at their city shelter and how it used to be compared to how it is now. So we look for every opportunity to get the word out about that.
Got a question here in the back?
Good morning. I have 2 dogs, and considering the microchip for my beagle, can you tell me how that works? Can I track her on my iPhone if she gets loose? I don't understand how to find her.
I wish. That would be awesome to have that. It's the size of a piece of rice, like a grain of rice. It takes about 5 seconds to put it in, and then it's just like a little shot in between their shoulder blades. And then after that, we input your information, usually a few phone numbers, a couple email addresses, and then if that dog ever comes in, they're all universal. So if somebody finds a lost dog, they could go to a vet clinic and have them wand over the dog to see if they have a microchip. And as long as you keep your information up to date, then we can get that dog home to you much faster. Cats too, of course. So, but yes, we do microchips at all of our locations.
Another question here in the back right.
Hello, I'm Elise, and I'm actually an intern in the mayor's office this summer. And one of my jobs is getting community leaders and people to represent Kansas City and explain their resources that they have in our community zone at Rock the Block. So I think that'd be a great place for you to get your information out, because we have about 10,000 participants that come through, and it's about mid-August at Union Station. So
we would love to be
Great
there.
idea.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Question up front here.
It sounds like one of your biggest threats is your own facility with a small space for the dogs and whatnot. So what is it going to take for you to find a bigger facility, and how are you going to go about funding that? Is it going to take more fundraising, more donations? Kind of what's your vision, and what do you have in place to try and get a bigger facility so you can kind of decrease kind of what's the threats to your business?
Yes.
Take that one.
So, yes, the city of Kansas City recognizes that they need a new shelter. It was built in 1972. It should be 3 times the size that it is for the amount of animals coming in and the people in our community. The challenge for the city is that we also need new streets, new bridges, sewer work. I mean, there's just a lot of things going on in the city, and all competing for existing resources. So we are in discussions about how we can get a new shelter for the city, whether that is through city funding or through private donors. So we know that we need a new shelter sooner than later, and we are working diligently to figure out what that plan should be to get a new shelter for the city.
We've got a question in the back left.
Hi, my mother-in-law just adopted a dog and was looking to get it neutered or spayed, and was shocked at how much it cost. And I just wondered if that is a service that you guys offer, or maybe could in the future as part of your fundraising efforts, a fee-based kind of fundraiser.
Well, we don't offer public veterinary services at this time, just because if you were to see our vet clinic, you would be amazed at the amount of work that we can get done in there. It's not much bigger than a small closet. We work out of very tight quarters. So it is something that we wish that we could do, and we hope to do potentially in the future. Spay Neuter KC is a wonderful resource in Kansas City. They can get your pet spayed or neutered for next to nothing, and they have a lot of events, and they're another great organization that we partner with. There's a few others in the metro area that offer low-cost spay neuters as well, but yeah, that's your way to go.
Got a question here in the middle.
As a Kansas City taxpayer, I'd like to say thank you for what you've done to help provide something like this without a situation that took a lot of extra taxes. Obviously, you're doing a great job, a much better job than we were doing just as a city-paid organization. So it sounds to me like as taxpayers here, we all need to look forward to the opportunity to see what we can do to get that new shelter going, because the way you're doing the job is the great way to go. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can you also just share a little bit about what inspired you to go into this industry?
Because the shelter was, as Tori said, a shelter that wasn't saving many lives. It was really important for us to step up and do something about it. So one of our mottos is solutions, not excuses. And we use that a lot. And so if something needs to be done, then why shouldn't it start with me? So we knew that we had to put something together. We had to put a group together very quickly and do something about what was happening in our own city shelter. And so we formed the Kansas City Pet Project. We have an amazing, hardworking staff and amazing volunteers and amazing supporters in the community that all wanted more for the animals in our own city right here in Kansas City. And so I'm pretty proud of what we've done just in 2.5 years.
Can you talk a little bit more about your process for bringing in new foster parents? Is there a review process? How long does it take before they're approved and then get a dog?
We have an application on our website for fostering, and you just go on and fill that out. It takes about 5 minutes, and then our foster coordinator, Sarah, will get in touch with you and find out, what your home situation is like, what would be the best fit for you. Right now, we have kittens up to our ears, and kittens are really easy to foster. So if you're willing to take a few in, that's awesome. But the way to get the word out, using events, we take flyers to all of our events about fostering, and then of course through Facebook is our main source of advertising.
And is there any additional technology that you guys hope to be able to integrate into the shelter?
Yes. Since we work out of an older facility, anything that's new and flashy and fancy, we're totally open to doing it. We're working on becoming a little bit more technologically savvy at all of our locations, just so that we do have, a nice program where we can, impress people when they come to our shelter a little bit. But yes, there's lots of stuff in the works, hopefully.
Any specific ideas?
Like using iPads to do adoptions, that type of thing, instead of sitting down and having paper and dealing with all of that. Using iPads and using programs to better our retail systems that we have up at Zona. Because our Zona location is actually a retail adoption center, so you can go in there and buy food, you can go and buy treats and toys and things like that. So trying to make all those processes a little bit simpler for the customer when they come into our shelter.
Yeah, say you're out in the play yard and you're looking at a dog and you want to know some information about that dog. The person that's helping you can just pull up the information on an iPad or a tablet, look and see where the dog came from, what sort of information we know about the dog, and be able to tell that potential adopter right there instead of having to say, well, I need to go back in the shelter, I need to get on a computer, I need to try to pull this up for you. So it's much more, real-time information to help people when they're there looking for a pet.
Question here in the middle.
The video of the dogs playing was quite compelling, and I wondered if you considered partnering with Google Fiber and putting in some live streaming so people could see that the animals are socialized and which ones are available.
Love to do that.
Yeah, sounds like a great idea. Yeah.
Yes, no, we would love to do stuff like that, have live stream in our cat room where people can watch. The playgroup program is very, very interesting. We do it every day, so 7 days a week we have people running dogs out into the yards, volunteers that run dogs, from about 8 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon, and now we're going to start doing some other enrichment and training programs in the afternoon, just so the dogs have a little bit of mental stimulation. They say that that when a dog goes out into playgroups, 30 minutes of playgroups equates to 2 hours of walking a dog. So that's how much energy they burn off. It helps them show better in their kennels, and ultimately helps us get to know all the dogs at the shelter.
Question here on your right.
Mm-hmm.
You have some impressive results in very short time. Do you work with other shelters and other communities to help them with some of the things that you do and incorporate the same things so that more pets can be saved in other parts of the country?
We are doing some of that. So one of the things about becoming no-kill and being an open admission shelter is that now we are the 3rd largest open admission no-kill shelter in the United States. And so we have other shelters in other parts of the country now that are reaching out to us that also run large open admission shelters saying, how did you do it? And what can we do to do that for our shelter? So it's been very successful for us to work with some other shelters, and we're seeing some results in those cities too.
Question here up front.
This is a breed question, but the Bull Terrier, is that necessarily a dangerous breed if it's not abused?
Are you talking about pit bulls in general? So no. So they're all dogs. So it's all about how they are socialized. And so any dog can be a great family pet. Any dog can not do so well. So what we try to do is help people understand that it's not the breed. We are working hard to get rid of the breed bans that are in our community. In fact, the breed bans that are in our community now are keeping the population of people who are interested in adopting dogs lower because we have breed bans in Independence, we have breed bans in KCK, and so that is really difficult for shelters who are in those areas that are trying to adopt out those certain breeds of dogs. So we're working hard to dispel those myths and help people understand. Our shelter is very full of the pit bull type dog. We probably have at least 100 pit bull type dogs in the shelter every day. But if you come in, I think you would see what we're doing there, and in fact, they're one of the best family dogs you could ever adopt. Very loyal, very sweet, and wonderful.
You had a question to the far left.
What can we do as a community to help with the bigger issue at hand, which is overpopulation of stray animals and population control? What can we do?
So I think we're making headway on spay-neuter, frankly. Certainly there's always a lot of kittens that come in every year. We still have kitten season. But we're seeing trends over time now where the litters of puppies is really going down. And in fact, I hear shelters say they can't find any puppies because there aren't that many coming in. So, but there's an increasing number of animals that are still coming in from the public. We're up 200% since we started from animals coming in from the public, people relinquishing their pets. And why is that? So I think spay and neuter resources are critically important, as well as being able to have low-cost veterinary care in all areas of Kansas City. But I also think that it's important, too, to figure out what resources are needed in the community for people to be able to keep their pets in their homes. Whether that's better housing, where you can have pet-friendly housing, getting rid of the breed bans so that you don't have to move to a place that you can't take your dog, training and behavior services, resources for food or dog houses, things like that. So there are many reasons why people give up their pets, but we need to figure out what those things are so that people don't actually get to the point where they have to come to the shelter and say, I no longer want my dog, or I no longer want my cat.
Got a question here in the middle?
When you say you're an open shelter, does that mean that if someone's having to bring an animal in for adoption, that they have to be a resident of Kansas City, or are you including people that are in the rural areas around Kansas City that don't have an option for when they have to give up an animal, or they have found a litter that was, deposited on their doorstep?
Yeah, you do have to be a Kansas City, Missouri taxpayer to be guaranteed that we would be able to take your pet in, or a stray animal that you found. And that's simply because we're at our limit already. We're going to take in nearly 10,000 animals this year. Most every day we take in 40 to 50 new animals every single day, 7 days a week. So you can see over time those numbers build up, which is why it's so critical that we have people that come and look for their lost pets, come and adopt, come foster, and help us move some animals through the system. But unfortunately, many of the times we're not able to take animals outside of our community, but we can provide some resources on how to rehome those animals that you find if you live in cities outside of Kansas City.
And we do take in not just dogs and cats. We've taken in goats, chickens, ducks, peacocks, owls, alligators, snakes, lizards, spiders, rats. I mean, we've taken in a lot of stuff.
We've seen it all.
Yes. Everything except for horses and cows, pretty much, and ponies. So.
We did have a bat come in, yes, but it's not available for adoption, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, the patent pending final question. What can we do as a community to help you?
Well, I would say it's the four things always. We need adoptions, we need volunteers, we need fosters, and we need donors. We can't do all the programs and services that we do every day without the support of the community, both financially and just the people wanting to come and support us. And so we are Kansas City's local shelter. We serve all of the unwanted or homeless animals in Kansas City, and we're always looking for more people to get involved and save lives with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps it up. Another 1 million cups. Hope to see everybody next week. Have a good one.